Welcome to Roanchar Ranch Draft Horse Rescue. We're located in Berrysburg, New York on 47 acres. We have 4 pastures that make up a total of 8 acres. Let's go meet our residents. Louis came to us in 2020 as an owner surrender. He had previously been a lesson horse that was offsetting the family's boarding fees. Because he was no longer able to be a lesson horse, they were no longer able to afford him, and they had spent a significant amount of money trying to diagnose why he went lame. While at the rescue, we were able to determine that Louis suffered from EPM. Because of the significant exposure, Louis will no longer be able to be ridden, but is happy and healthy and loves to roam the pastures. Harry arrived at the rescue in 2022. He was literally the last living being left on the farm that he grew up on. It ends up that Harry suffers from cataracts. He had a horrible skin condition that we have since resolved, and he also does have penile cancer. You can't tell that anything is wrong with Harry, as he enjoys spending most of his day out on pasture along with Louis. This is our barn. It's divided into 2 identical sides. We have an open floor plan because a lot of the horses that we get in are claustrophobic and don't do well in stalls. But each of the sides can be divided into a 12 by 12 stall so that the big guys have ample room to lay down and they won't cast themselves. This is the other side of the barn. It is identical to the one that was just shown. Each side has water and a mineral block, and the horses can choose whichever side that they want to be on because they have access to either side. So if some of the horses are not getting along, this is an easy way for them to partner up and eat with a horse that they feel comfortable with. This is the front pasture that is by the barn. It has the ability to be split into 2 sections so that the front side of the barn can be separated from the back side of the barn. This gives us an opportunity to quarantine horses. If we have horses that medically need to be separated out due to the fact that they're blind or they just have some other ailment where they need to be by themselves or with a partner, we're able to do that via a center line. This is the attachment for the center line. We don't have it up at the moment due to the fact that all of the horses are able to be in one herd. But this is the one end of it. This is the other end for the center line. We use woven electrified rope that is hooked into the electric on the opposite end. But this has served us very well with splitting the front pasture, or the first pasture, into 2 sections where each section has access to the barn with water and minerals. This is the fencing for the front pasture. It has high tensile covered with vinyl plastic. That section is not electrified. And then we have 2 lines of woven wire that is electrified. This fencing was specifically put in for visually impaired horses so that if they were to run into the top section, they would not be electrified. Yet if they pushed that boundary, they then would get a shock when they went and touched the woven line. Our other fencing in the other pastures is only woven wire. This is our second pasture and one of our larger pastures. As you can see, there is a run-in shelter so that the horses can get out of the sun during the day. In addition, we are able to close this pasture off because the shelter is available. As I mentioned before, this fencing is 3 strands of woven wire. The top and the bottom are hot, with the middle not being so. This is our third pasture. This is our smallest pasture. It's more of a transitional pasture, meaning that in the spring, this is the first pasture that they're allowed to go out on. We construct a laneway from the first pasture through the second pasture to this pasture so that they can have small amounts of grass and we can pull them off easily. Also, we open it back up in the later part of the summer so that they have access to some more grass. The other reason that we only allow them on here for short periods of time, you can see that this pasture does not have a run-in shed or any kind of shelter. So they are never closed off in this pasture. They always have access to other pastures so that they can get back to the barn or to the second pasture where there is another shelter for them. This is our fourth pasture. It's one of our larger pastures. It also has the woven wire and not high tensile. The horses have shade underneath the trees and access to run around, and they really enjoy this pasture. This pasture is always opened up later in the summer due to the fact that it can get kind of wet depending on the kind of spring that we've had. So we hold off on opening this up so that they don't run the risk of getting injured with the wetness. The fourth pasture is attached to the second and third pasture by laneways. It's a gate system where we have gates at both ends for the fourth pasture and for the adjoining pasture. They then have access to go back to the barn if they want to, or go back to shelter. This one is to the second pasture. This is the laneway to the third pasture. Same as the other laneway, there's gates at both ends so that they don't get trapped in there. And it's easy access, and it has worked out to be a very good system. To the left is also property that we have access to. It is owned by myself, and we have the opportunity to expand and create more pastures when it is deemed necessary. We believe in controlled growth here at the rescue. So right now these 4 pastures serve the horses very well. If we increase in numbers of horses, then we will also increase the number of pastures that we have to help support them. This is our hayloft. During the summer, they have access to the pasture, so we do not feed out the hay. So from about June until October, they're out on pasture, and then October to June, obviously, we feed out the hay. This is our feed and storage area. The feed bags are kept on a metal rack to keep them off the ground and dry. Once the bags are open, they're placed into the garbage cans. So once again, they are kept dry. This area is close enough to hot water, so when we have horses that need their feed made into a mash, we have easy access. Each day, the feed buckets are cleaned to maintain the horse's health. This is our training area where we assess the horse's temperament and work on ground manners, riding, and driving. It is quite a large area that we're also able to do clinics in and have demonstrations.